This is Dana Samuelson with the American Gold Exchange. You're listening to the Average Joe Finances Podcast with Mike Cavagioni.
If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you smash the like and subscribe buttons. If you're listening to our podcast, go leave us a 5-star review. All of our links can be found in the video description or show notes below.
Hey guys, and welcome back to the Average Joe Finances Podcast. I'm your host today, Tanya, the Money Life Coach, and we are here with Moshe Popack, the chairman of YMP Real Estate Management. Super excited to talk to you today, Moshe. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Tanya. So happy to be here. And hopefully we can give practical advice to your listeners how to create abundance.
For sure. Love that. Yeah, let's just jump right in. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey. Who is Moshe Popack?
So we live in Miami now. My wife, Yafa, we're together 20 years. And 18 years ago, we moved from New York. We both grew up in Queens, New York, and we moved to Miami in March of 2007. Today, my oldest child is 18 and my baby boy is 10 months, and we have 11 children.
Wow.
Yeah. So along with that, it's a bit busy. And I've said this, maybe they're going to coin this already, but really organized chaos between the 9 boys and 2 girls and then work, right? We're growing the company.
Yeah.
But where we come from, we picked up in March of 2007. We left everybody. We left our family and we came here for vacation and we stayed. We had just bought a house and we just left and we never went back because I told my wife, I said, we can do this now or we can do it in 30 years from now as far as opportunity. I guess we just said, it's quality of life, but there's also a chance to make a living and take bold bets down here in Florida. So that's really what we did. While that's going on, you can imagine we're having children and we're dealing with a lot of twists and turns. And how we started was I had a job in March of 2007. 8 months later, the whole market crashed and lost my job. And I had 3 kids, no job in 2009. And I bought my first property in right around then, 2009, 10. And it was a tough area, workforce housing, so a lot of crime. But I believed in the area would change, and I had no choice, right? I had to pay the bills.
Yep.
That's what it is. And that's just in general. I find that unless it gets really desperate and dire, a lot of times we have fear.
Yep.
And the only way that fear will be negated is when you have no choice. You go all in and there's nothing to do. As I say, the boat that took you to the island has been burned, right?
Yeah, because it's that complacency and that a lot of people get stuck in their comfort zone. But sometimes, shit has to go down for you to actually make a change in your life. And yeah, that's amazing. So was your job, you were a lawyer, is that correct? Like you were in law.
Yeah.
And was that a job that you got let go from?
So I went to law school and business school, but I always tell the story that basically doing some closings, doing some transactions, and I see the other fellow who's a real estate developer and he's walking away from the closing with a few $100,000 and I'm made a few $1,000s. I'm like, okay, I don't want to practice law anymore. So that's that. But I always say that it's extreme high barrier to entry to get involved in commercial real estate ownership, because the reason why most people have problems is because they run out of money in any business, for that matter. I always say you have to have 2 years of savings.
Yeah.
And that includes savings for your lifestyle and then also reserves for the business that you're trying to do. Most things fail, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't try.
Yeah.
The key is you have to have a vision of what you're going to do, complete clarity on that vision,
Mhm.
and then execute relentlessly and then pivot all the time.
Yeah, for sure. Man, like how did you figure out real estate? So was that something that was always interesting to you? Like you saw that transaction, obviously like that kind of got you motivated. But then were you all of a sudden, I'm going all in on this and I'm going to figure this out?
I like complicated puzzles and creating something that's broken and then seeing the finished result.
Mm-hmm.
And then so there's a lot of moving parts. Obviously, like most of us, complete ADHD,
Yeah.
right? Right. Also all over the place. And so you got to deal with the lawyers and you got to deal with negotiation. Then you got to deal with management and ownership and banks. So there's so many people and things going on, right? So if you're the type of person that just likes, okay, this is my instruction, and you're not a critical thinking type of person. A lot of people, if you want to become a critical thinking type of person, what people should do is read and learn a lot. Invest in yourself, not just like Fox News, but Fox News, CNN, independent podcasts, a little bit of wide array. So you should be as open-minded as you can be. You have to, because if you're not open-minded, you don't see opportunity. This is the way it's done. Really, our entire life, I always say this, it's the little children, the kids have it right because they have the creativity.
Yeah.
Then as we get older, what happens is society says, you got to do this. And we've been doing that for generations. Every parts of our lives is like belief systems and
Totally.
deeply held belief systems. But what do? We pick up and we fly to Saudi Arabia or we go to, I don't know, Korea, somewhere. And their life, they seem happy and they're making money and but they're just doing it differently than us. So that shifting out of perspective is super important to realize. I just saw a stat. It was like this year, 2024, globally, $1 trillion was spent on marketing. Marketing is another word for a human, people, or group of people have the ability to basically manipulate and convince other people to do something. Buy this widget, do this service.
Yeah.
So, right? So if we spend our adult life undoing those belief systems, what happens? Opportunity happens.
Yeah. But that's hard for a lot of people to do. I know obviously our audience, most of them are entrepreneurs and are breaking those barriers. But how did you go from, okay, you spent all this time in law school. Was there like an identity shift for you? You grew up, you're a third generation entrepreneur. So that was probably in your blood and natural to you. But like, how did you break? You're like, oh, I'm on this path to becoming a lawyer. And now I'm going to shift to this. Was that challenging for you at that time?
Completely. I think that, so I did see that. I did see entrepreneurship and things from my grandfather, my father, but it was a certain way. And it was a certain, we must stay here in New York and must do this. But there was an entrepreneurial spirit. And my natural way, I remember when I was younger, a lot of friends and people that knew me said, you shouldn't go into business because you don't have the personality for business.
Really? What?
I guess I could say, yeah, today I'm a completely different human. I genuinely say that. Like sensitive, empath type of, I still am.
Okay.
Still am, but I've had to learn to protect my energy and just the way to do that is just straight, transparent, and you take accountability. Yeah, and you got to grow up. And I have 11 children and I have a wife. So you got no choice, right? But that was what it was. And I wanted to, there were two things that really drove me. One is I wanted to have a good life for my family, right? I wanted to have a good life for my family. I'm a Taurus, so I'm stubborn, extremely stubborn. And I guess my gift would be numbers. And I always say it doesn't have to be for people so sophisticated. I always say it's second grade math. Any business, any real estate, when you're coming in, you have to be clear People are like, oh, where do I start? What do I do? I know I'm watching people, because most people have this kind of like lazy gene. So, oh, look at crypto, like Bitcoin's doing this. All I got to do is throw money here and all this money is going to be made.
Mhm.
But the same way the money goes up, the money's going to go down. The sticky money, the money that every month you're able to pay your bills,
Yeah.
is blood, sweat, and tears into an idea that you have clarity.
Yep.
And the math is money comes in, and then there's some bills to pay, expenses, and then there's a profit, right? Ideas, wow, look at me, I'm super genius. I come up with ideas. Ideas, no way. It's irrelevant.
Yeah.
It's important. You can have one good idea and a simple idea. But the hardest part of it is, over a long period of time, the execution of that idea in a very simple way. Scaling it makes it simple.
Yeah.
And then growing it from there. So we have that lazy gene.
Yeah.
We also want validation. That's the other part of the problem of starting. Because what are other people going to say when I fail 1,000 times?
Mhm.
So you have to put yourself in a situation where there's no going back in order for you to reach abundance.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. And I think the fact too of having to make sacrifices, like what you're saying, a lot of people don't want to live below their means in order to get. A lot of people don't want to do those things to get where because it's temporary. I'm always in my coaching, I'm like, can you work another job temporarily for 6 months to pay down some of this consumer debt because you have no cash flow? You know what I mean? Like, people are so in their comfort zone, like you said earlier.
So watch this on a simple level, to your point. Okay, take away Sunday football. Take away the movies you're watching, right?
Yeah.
Right? A real assessment.
Totally.
You don't want to take the flashlight on yourself, right? You want it because we're being told through social media and everywhere else that it's instant gratification. This could come this easy, boom, boom.
Mm-hmm.
None of it's true. Okay, that's a belief system. Throw it out the window. Why is it not true? And you could see it, test it, because it's not happening for you.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, you have to have a paradigm shift. It's not happening for you. What am I doing wrong? You're not setting up a foundation of the potential to attract wealth.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you got so you have your job to do this. Nights and weekends, right? Nights and weekends, you're searching for real estate investments.
Mm-hmm.
Or you're searching for other work to do, and you're curbing your expenses.
Mm-hmm.
You're living with your parents or whatever you got to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is what it is. And now they're saying, oh, this is so great. Our unemployment rates are so low, but it's hard now. They say the middle income is like nearing maybe 200,000, 150,000, some number. It's hard for people.
Yeah.
Because groceries, gas, car, rent, it's hard, but the only way to do anything is to start.
Yeah. It's hard, but it's not impossible. There's still ways on some of the videos that you even post about doing things. You can buy real estate with 3%. It's like your first loan and things like that. The stuff you talk about how you're going to get started, because people have these, oh, I need $1 million to have this. So go into a little bit on those strategies on how you coach people when they have that fear of like, how do I start, or what do I do, and all those things.
First of all, you have to understand the nature of business. There's a 100% possibility you will fail.
Mm-hmm.
So step one, right? That's otherwise, right? Otherwise, do not become an entrepreneur. You have to look within yourself, knowing that's the worst case scenario, and getting comfortable with that. Once you start with that, then you have to get, what do I love? What's my passion? Why do you need a passion? And then it could be real estate, but it could be other things. Like I said, I wanted to, after college, work on the mountain in ski mountain. And so why do you need a passion? Because in any time you're trying to grow a business, 100% of the time, there will be really big headwinds. There'll be things that are right in front of your face.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not beyond the money, if you don't have tremendous passion, what happens? You give up. And that equals the failure, and that equals a feeling within yourself, a lower self-confidence, which is a tragedy. right? Which is a tragedy. So if it's something, that's why you need that. If it's something that you love and you have a long-term vision and you set it up correctly, you set it up that you have savings, or you're going to live, I'm going to live in my car. All right. No, but
For
how many
sure.
people, right? Like how many people in reality, we take the steps back. You see these people, Elon Musk, you see these guys, they're working 80, 90, 100-hour work weeks.
Mhm.
Let's look at them now.
Mhm.
Everyone's forgetting, and then after 10 years or a certain amount of time, you don't have to work as hard.
Right.
You can't it doesn't come free because there's over 8 billion people
Mhm.
that are trying to make that hustle. So here's the bell curve, right? You have to be way beyond the bell curve to get results that are compounded, that are tremendous.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why when we talk about mindset,
Mhm.
that's why they should teach in elementary school two things, three things really. It's like resilience, but
Mhm.
real resilience. And I worked that out with my wife. I'm trying to think, how are my children living here in Miami Beach? How are they going to have true resilience,
Mhm.
right? Real resilience that we saw.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that they have to come up, the school system is antiquated. So you got to have real resilience and the basics of financial management. And I'm sure that's what you're doing with your show.
Yeah.
This is the total money after taxes, right? A lot of people don't calculate for that.
I
They
know.
go, oh, I brought in $4,000. No, it's $3,000 or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And this is my rent. And no, credit card debt is debt,
Mhm.
right? So you can't afford that. Sorry.
I know.
True.
I have to give people the hard truth every day. So
Right.
in coaching, it is looking in the mirror. That thing that you said earlier about that was what I had to do for myself when I was stuck in a relationship because of finances and relying on him financially and feeling like I wanted to pay off debt. But I was like in my early 30s then. And what am I doing with my life? I had to be like, what I'm doing, it's me. And it's me. And how am I going to change my reality?
Yeah, I'll tell you something. And for women out there, my wife's a very strong woman. And what's happening now, so all women should know, is more and more, they're becoming more and more CEOs and heads of family offices.
Mm.
And there's a big need. There's trillions of dollars in pension funds, in sovereign wealth funds, and for women-led business initiatives.
Mm.
It's a huge growth space.
Yeah.
It's a different perspective than the men, but you have to be resilient, you have to be strong. But yeah, most of my top C-suite are all women, actually.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah, they're all women, organized. Yeah, I'm a fan of strong women. I'll say it straight because they'll say it what it is, and I don't take it. And you know what you're going to get. It's straight, and there's collaboration, transparency, and a lot of times maybe they have a child or they have obligations and things, and it's important to them.
Yeah.
There's something, and I have both men and women, but I have a lot of women that are lieutenants, if you want to call it that. Yeah.
But yeah, it is a belief system even for me growing up because I was taught like, oh, the man handles the money, yeah. And then I was always told like math was my worst subject in school. I was more a creative writer. And so I owned that, but then I let that be who I was until I was like, what I'm doing isn't working. Other people seem to be figuring this out. I can figure it out too. But yeah, it is that unlearning that mindset piece of not wanting to be saved.
What'd you do? I'm just curious. Okay, so you came to this realization. You're like, okay, I got to get my shit in order, basically.
Yeah.
And so, did you start learning about finances? Did you what was that? I assume that's what you started to do, right?
Yeah, I basically was like, I'm committing a year to listening to reading all the finance books, podcasts, taking in in my free time. I walked to work on part of my commute. And so, yeah, I was like, for a year, I'm going to spend as much time as I can learning what I can and also asking for support, right? That's the hard part too, is actually asking for help, like asking other people how they're doing it, getting a coach and working with people who are further along than you. So that was a big piece of it for me, for sure. Yeah.
That's proof of concept right there.
Yeah.
Right? So the greatest investment, dollars, time, energy, is investing in yourself, for sure. because you become high value. You're constantly, and you're always willing to show up, and you're always willing to give first. Always.
Yep. I love
That's
that. I know your faith is a super important piece of that to you. And the financial side of it brought me back to my faith. I grew up going to church, but that was an interesting piece of it too. I took Financial Peace University, Dave Ramsey's course at a local church. So I started going back to church, and I had this whole awakening through that of seeing the value, like what God says about money in the Bible and things like that. Like I'm like, it's all right here. Here's the best personal development book we could be reading, but we're not listening to it. And that's when it hit me too.
I'll tell you, I have a friend of mine, and he's not necessarily practicing any particular religion, but just a belief in a higher being. But he said to me, if someone doesn't believe in a higher being, he's let them go into business, right? Let them go into business, because there's always, every single successful entrepreneur, I speak to them, and they say there's that moment. There's always going to be that moment. And the thing, because you have to keep going, right? When you're going through hell, they always say, you got to keep going. That's the only answer. And the best thing, hopefully, maybe people listening to the show, they'll know, oh, wow, a thought will pop in their mind when they're going through that insanity. Okay, I heard that. That means that I guess this is my time to go through my insanity, and then just keep going through it, and then each level.
Totally. Yeah. Like you said, the faith and trust is a huge piece of being an entrepreneur and not knowing, because there's just a lot of fear of the unknown and failure. So yeah, without that, it is easier to give up.
The hardest thing with failure is judgment. One of the reasons why I like Gary Vaynerchuk so much is because he talks a lot about stop judging. Don't judge yourself.
Totally.
Don't judge others. That's the biggest problem psychologically with what we do. Because we're judging, it doesn't allow for failure, which doesn't allow for success. The only way you can have success is if you've had failure.
Yep.
It equals, it's an energy both sides. So that concept, because I remember Oprah said, she interviewed over 30 years, men, women, and children, because we need our feelings validated all the time as humans. Once you get away from that need of validation, kid, there you go.
Here comes my co-host today.
Yeah.
No, I love that. And I love a lot of what Gary talks about too is comparison, which is basically like you're judging somebody else's life and comparing it to how yours should be, or yeah, I think it's sometimes like that tough love that people need to hear and listen to in order to make a change.
I hope I'm looking at like the youth, like my kids, and I see slowly that they're moving away. They're frustrated. Rage causes change. So they're frustrated, right? Like opportunities, where are the opportunities? But a lot of the youth are working really hard. They're trying, and some are not, right? They still believe in the narrative that they're entitled to stuff.
Yeah.
They still believe in that, but some of them are working real hard to try to humble and that's the only way, because in the end, it's alliances. It's what is business? It's connecting with people by giving value. You're giving value. You have to constantly give value. How do you give value if you don't have a specialty, if you haven't worked on yourself? What value are you giving to other people? Right? You're just another person. You have no core to who you are.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to really give out. By the way, my daughter last month, she found 3 little kittens and randomly brought them home. And but then they get big. That's what happens.
Yeah. So you have them now still?
Yeah. She keeps
11 kids and 3 kittens and dogs.
I know. I got a dog. I have Boris. My dog. Yeah. We like animals. It's fun.
I love that. Yeah, I rescued her a couple years ago. Working from home, and you're like, you need a companion, someone to hang out with. I love that. Let's jump into the final round. Your time's valuable, and you're a busy guy. And I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on these questions. So, what's the biggest mistake that you've ever made when it came to your finances and or business life?
Mistake. I've made many mistakes. I'm trying to think of the biggest one. I would say not taking during the beginning of COVID, I would say when interest rates were basically zero,
Yeah.
where interest rates were basically zero, I probably should have just bought everything that
Oh
was
my
like
God.
there,
I know.
right? You should have just bought everything at the time. And I'm going to give credit to my son, my 16-year-old. He begged me when Bitcoin was 17,000.
Uh-huh.
And that wasn't too long ago. It was less than 2 years ago. Didn't buy that. But I had opportunities to expand and I would create self-doubt through the
Mhm.
years. And you don't want to do that because if you want to find out, you could find it everywhere.
Yeah. So
So,
true.
but that's where I think that I could have done more. And hopefully now I am. But and not every deal, just deal by deal. Not every deal works out. Sometimes it's supposed to be a 2-year turnaround when I buy a piece of real estate, buy a
Mhm.
lot of foreclosures. And sometimes they take 5 years,
Mhm.
7 years. So those I don't consider mistakes, but you know,
For sure.
business plan, right? You have a business plan. Most of the time, the business plan doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's just you and the energy you put into something. So
Yeah. I heard something recently. It was like, no point in even creating a business plan. Don't take the time because it's going to change and so much is going to change. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I know that in hindsight for sure with COVID, especially in this area in Tahoe, how much stuff doubled and like over doubled since then. It's pretty insane.
yeah, it's crazy. I remember I was telling my wife yesterday, there was a point for a month or a little less than a month that oil was negative per barrel. It was
Really?
yeah, it was like now it's like 70, $80 a barrel.
Yeah.
It was like under zero. So I was like, how did they do that? They give me a check to take the oil. So there's always things, investments that I could have gotten, things that I could have done.
Yeah.
You know, there was a great story about the fellow who bought a pizza for 10,000 Bitcoin.
Hmm.
It's worth like $1 billion today.
Oh,
So
that's right.
I don't
Yeah.
have that stories, but I'm constantly just trying to learn. So you're definitely mistakes and you just have to have a positive attitude towards things that go sideways.
Yeah. I love that.
Right?
What's something that you've learned that you wish you would have known when you first started out as an entrepreneur, let's say?
I think about good money and bad money. I
Mhm.
think that who you're going to be partners with, it includes passive partner and active partner.
Okay.
Do they align with your framework, with who you are? Are they going to lift you up or are they going to bring you down?
Mm.
Because we all know, okay, fine. When it's making money, everyone's doing whatever. But it has to be someone that has an easy hand, someone that's kind and humble. And just because they have money, it doesn't make a difference. And you're there aligned to see the success of the business. So you have
Mhm.
to make sure, don't be desperate. Be sure that the person is a good person.
Ooh, yeah, I've had that. A couple people in here say the same thing about partnerships and things like that. Yeah, that's definitely a big one. So, do you have any tips or tricks that you recommend to anyone just getting started, let's say, in real estate today?
I'll tell you this. So if you want to jump into real estate, and I've said it, which you've talked about, there's programs, right? It's all about, oh, I can't get in because I don't have money.
Mhm.
Yeah, the FHA gives 97% financing. You buy a fourplex, it's 4 units, and you live in one for a year, and you buy the best location, the worst looking house, and you fix it up yourself,
Okay.
right? So that's creating value. But in the short term, and even my 18 and 16-year-old are doing it, and I've said it many times on many different shows. And if I had nothing and I'm just starting out, start making cash flow, passive cash flow. How do you do that? You go into the vending machine business. There's ups and downs with it, but have no ego. Everybody wants a snack, right? And you just get locations. That's the key. And you make your return in less than a year.
Mm,
Make your money
okay.
back in less than a year, and it's a very little capital outlay.
Amazing.
So
Okay.
I'm watching my kids just taking their money. They have maybe now 50 locations and right. And they're taking their money and they're rolling out. They just ordered a bunch more machines from China and it comes to the port and they pick it up and they deliver it. And
That's cool.
I think that anybody, you talk about the side hustle or whatever it is, but it's a business. Everybody wants something so abstract and crazy. Why do I use it as an example? Because it's a great example. It's simple. It's simple and profit comes. Extra money comes. It costs you 50 cents to buy the product, $2 you sell it. Done. Sales.
Yeah. Obviously, yeah, I think people try to overcomplicate or think it has to be so hard. You can start off on a smaller scale like that. And yeah, that's a
And
great.
work really hard. Work really hard. It's just work really. If you create a habit for a year of working extremely hard, work on yourself, do what you say, it changes, right? It changes who you are and what people see of you. And you have to be okay that the old friends that weren't for you will fall away. But
Yeah.
then you make new friends that are better for you.
Yeah. 1,000,000,000% yes to that. I love that.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite business investing or real estate books or podcasts? Besides your own, obviously.
For me, I like Dave Ramsey's pretty good for beginners.
Yeah.
And I like mindset. I like just social media, like Gary Vee, but I also like long form. I like Joe Rogan. I think he's thorough how he interviews. I like it.
Yeah.
I like how he does that. And I think the best book rounding out as far as going through life, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Okay. Yep.
I think that's a very normal, it's reality of dealing with people. And that's all we are, it's just people.
And people, yep, it's always going to be a part of our life in some capacity, especially as entrepreneurs. So love that. Where can people find more information about you? What website, social media, where do you hang out?
Thank you. So the macro is MoshePopack.com. So on there is a lot of our podcasts, our recommendations, a lot of things that we're doing. The podcast common denominator, our podcast, is a way that we give back. We talk about the things we have in common as humans. Mindset, business advice, instead of things that divide us. Right?
Yeah.
And then we have a lot of social. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, we're on Instagram, just quick tidbits at Popak. And then the podcast you could find on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast, Spotify and Apple.
Great. Yeah. Your social media is awesome. And you guys do a really good job, which is like a mix of content, but on the not just real estate side, but personal development and kind of that mindset side that so many people need, no matter whatever they do. They need it.
It starts with the mind. If your mind is not clear and you have doubts and thoughts like that, it's hard for you to have success.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. I love that. Do you have any final thoughts or words of wisdom for our listeners? Anything that we missed today?
I just think that you always have to look to how I really started. This was actually the key. When I figured out that I'm going to do the hardest work that's available, let's say there's a particular business plan, I'm going to take on myself to do the hardest things on me. I'm not going to expect anything of anybody else.
Okay.
And I'm going to make sure that other people make money first and I make money last. If you develop that as your habit, then success will happen.
That's great. Wow. I haven't heard anyone put it that way, but that's.
You have to wire it the complete opposite way of what society tells you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's hard to do, but that's great. I love that. So thank you so much, Moshe, for joining us today. Definitely go follow along. Thanks for being here. We loved having you. And our listeners are going to get so much value out of this. Touched on so many different topics and just really inspiring, motivating, and all the things. So thanks for joining us, and make sure you guys go leave a 5-star review. Let us know what you liked about today's podcast and share this with somebody who needs it. And we'll see you later from Lake Tahoe and from Miami, Florida.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you for making it to the end of this episode. Greatly appreciate you being here with me today on the Average Joe Finances podcast. If you haven't done so yet, make this the episode that you go leave us a 5-star rating or subscribe to our YouTube channel. The Average Joe Finances podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Have an outstanding day.